Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming out to Lakeside. And, I am so glad that you all came in waves early because the parking has been pretty difficult, but thank you for coming on a Sunday. Look, our country is literally facing, and I will use the word that triggers the left, we are facing an invasion that is threatening our national security and bankrupting our communities. And what we know is happening is not only do we have a crisis at the border, but we have politicians and a liberal, corrupt media enterprise that refuses to tell the American people the truth. When people finally find out what actually is happening at the border and understand the full spectrum of negative impacts, they overwhelmingly come to our side and they want to vote for change on that issue alone. And so one of the big problems we have in the fight to secure our border is that if we want to achieve change in policy, we must educate the American people. We must educate our friends, our family, and our neighbors on the actual things that are happening down there. And that's why town halls like this, and we've got a series of them coming up, we've got to start making this issue come alive by telling the truth. Now, in this program, we're going to talk about the crisis at the border. We're going to hear from the best person you can hear from on this issue in San Diego County. Someone who has been a great source of information for me, not only on what's happening, but he's given me advice on here's what would work, here's what's not going to work. Here's what would be helpful, here's what's just rhetoric. And so this is someone from the Border Patrol. He is retired. He is a retired Border Patrol Union Director for the San Diego sector. And so he can tell us about what it is like to be a Border Patrol agent and how Border Patrol agents' jobs will either be made or broken by the politicians. They either will be able to do the job because they have the support of the federal government and our state and local politicians, or they will be impeded from doing the job because those politicians have a different agenda and they're trying to kneecap them and undercut them and make their lives miserable at every single turn. We need to hear the truth from the agents themselves. Now, sadly, our agents who are currently working are censored. They are muzzled because this administration has a policy that those agents are not allowed to speak the truth. They're not allowed to respond to media inquiries. They're not allowed to speak in public about it. And so it is hard to get that information out there. We do have many whistleblowers, and I'll tell you, the number of Border Patrol agents and law enforcement that would email me over the years, I get these emails all the time. I'm a Border Patrol agent, but this is a phony email account to protect my identity. This is what's going on at the border. That's been very helpful, but what we need to do is when we find out this information, we've got to get it out there as quickly as possible. Then I'm going to talk about our plan to change policy. Many people think that border is a federal issue. It certainly starts at the federal government. You can't really do the job of securing the border unless you have a president and a federal government committed to securing the border. And clearly in this administration, we do not have that. And don't assume that a Republican politician is going to follow through on their words on border, because we've been burned and betrayed before by the words, and the actions have not actually been followed through on. But the federal government is just the first start. We have to secure the border with state policy change. And I want to talk about that today, because I know some of you are saying, well, I can't stand it in California more, so I'm going to go flee to another state. let me tell you, if we don't stay and fight in California, I know this is the bloodiest part of the battlefield. If we don't stay and fight in California and change the reckless, dangerous, open border policies that this state and our liberal politicians have imposed, we will not have a safe and secure America, because our back door will be open right here in the state of California. We must. It is our duty as patriots. If we love America, we want to secure our country, we have an obligation to stay and fight and shut down the open border that California politicians have created. And then we will leave time for questions. So let me start out first on the border crisis as we see it today and why it is a federal and state responsibility. The border crisis is multifaceted in its negative impacts. First and foremost, we know about the impacts of illegal immigration. It's not right for people to come into our country illegally and have sort of impact on our communities because we do have a very generous country. And I want to make it quite clear, when we talk about securing the border, when we talk about opposing illegal immigration, the left and the media says that we're racist, that we are xenophobic, that we don't want people to come here. That is a bald-faced lie. It is offensive to the American people who support legal immigration. And again, nothing about a secure border is inconsistent with a warm and welcoming position that we've always had and will continue to have as Americans for bringing immigrants into our country. We are a land of immigrants. We are stronger for that. I mean, how lucky are we as a country over generations where people have fled other countries that don't give them freedom and don't give them economic opportunities, and they say, I'm asking for nothing. I don't want a handout. All I want is an opportunity. Can I come? Will you let me in? And we had a vetting process and we let millions of people in. Now, mind you, we still have that same vetting process. We still have that same warm, welcoming opportunity. Come and be free. Come and have economic opportunity. But we have rules. We have a vetting process. We simply ask that you follow and come in legally. We bring in 1 million legal immigrants every year into this country, more than the entirety of immigrants allowed into all countries of the world combined. So when Democrats and the media say that we are somehow closed-minded and not wanting to welcome, it's absolutely not true. We support legal immigration. But the people coming here illegally, they don't want to follow the rules. They want to cut in line. They don't want to be properly vetted. And sadly, they come not asking for freedom and an opportunity. Too many of them are coming demanding the handout. That's not what we've ever offered, and it's not going to make us a stronger country. And so the first thing is that we need to understand that illegal immigration is not how we're going to do this. It's not how we should be doing it, and it is not the heritage of our country. Second, when people come in illegally, they do get these benefits. And the benefits are given not by federal politicians. They're given by state and local politicians. And this is why you have to stay and fight in California. And this is where I keep telling you, you could get President Trump back in the White House, and God willing, it's going to happen, and I believe it will. You can get him in there. But on the second thing, if Gavin Newsom continues to dangle the carrot of free welfare benefits, then he is the marketing chief for the human traffickers, the cartels. The cartels literally send him gift baskets, all right? And of course, knowing how his pay-to-play politics works, they're probably very expensive gift baskets. But Gavin Newsom and California Democrats, and sadly, some rhino Republicans have joined in giving these goodies away. They give free taxpayer-funded health care, while your health insurance costs continue to skyrocket. They offer free welfare, cash benefits. They give free airline tickets. They're now even trying to give them free homes, $150,000 down payment to illegal immigrants. Now, when all these goodies are given, the cartels advertise the fact that these goodies are available, and it makes the recruitment of people into human trafficking all the more easy. You'll find that human traffickers don't do it out of the goodness of their heart. This is a money-making operation for traffickers, the human trafficking and the drug trafficking and the sex trafficking. All three of them they're making profits on. And they go down and they say, give me $5,000, give me $4,000, give me $8,000, depending upon the journey and how they're going to bring them in. I understand that the water journeys cost a lot more than coming just across the border. But these people they're preyed on. But what they say is, no, it's worth giving me $5 grand, because when you get there, you get free health care, you get the welfare, you get the $150,000 home. You're going to get so much more. So it's worth you giving me the money. And these people are taken advantage of. And it's because Gavin Newsom offers the carrot. He's incentivizing the evil enterprise of human trafficking. Third, let's talk about calling it what it is. Ronald Reagan, have you seen the Reagan movie yet? Please go and see it. Please go and see it. Ronald Reagan had the guts. He had the wisdom to, in the Cold War, describe what the stakes were by describing the evil empire. And he was mocked for saying that. They said, oh, it's dangerous for him to describe it that way. Oh, he might be wrong. These are just people who disagree with us. It's an evil empire. And I will tell you, we as people wanting border security need to start educating people who don't get it off the bat with the illegal immigration issue and unfairness and the cost of illegal immigration to taxpayers. We need to talk to them about the predatory evil enterprise that human trafficking is. These people are put in harm's way, a dangerous journey. We hear stories about people burning up and dying in the back of a big rig truck because of the heat in the middle of the desert. Border Patrol and law enforcement chases where dangerous accidents occur. One was a Toyota SUV that flipped over and 12 people were inside. Several people died. But that's happening a lot more than people know about in the media because it's not reported. And on top of that, the girls, the boys, they're recruited into drug trafficking and sex trade because the parents can't pay for them to cross. And so the cartels say, oh, that's okay. We got a discount for you. We just want your girl or your boy. We'll put them to work. Work is never described. 80% of sex workers in Southern California are illegal immigrants. 80%. You want to talk about helping these people? You're not helping them by helping the traffickers recruit them and have an open border to bring them through. And then finally, we live in a dangerous world. And during President Trump's administration, we did have a handful of terror watch suspects who were apprehended at the border. Thank goodness, because of his policies, we were able to support our Border Patrol agents in doing the sorts of apprehensions. But in the Biden administration, we have had a massive spike in terror watch suspects who've been encountered at the border. More than 380 in just the past year alone, which is an absolute monumental spike from the Trump administration. Just in July alone, I received a tip from one of our whistleblowers who said, Carl, you got to see this. And he showed me a screenshot of an internal system at Border Patrol. And it had a pictures of a terror watch suspect from the Middle East, dressed in the Islamic garb, with a machine gun, with all sorts of grenades, smiling, with a hood, a black hood on in another photo. He's a member of the he's on the terror watch suspect list. And this was not known. And so, as you know, for the past year and a half, I've appeared weekly on Fox News, Trace Gallagher's Fox at Night. I drive up to LA. But one of the things that we did when that started is I started talking to Fox, and they said, you got your border reporter in Texas. That's not where the action is, man. The action is in the San Diego sector. Because Governor Greg Abbott, he's doing his job as a governor to secure his border. He sent the state National Guard down to his border. He's not giving out the free welfare benefits. He's not disparaging the job of Border Patrol. He's not blocking local law enforcement from coordinating and cooperating with Border Patrol to get the job done and make us safe. So where do you think these people are coming? They're not coming across in Texas. It's like squeezing the air in a balloon. Abbott secures more of his border, what happens? The air flows to our sector. The last time San Diego was #1 for illegal crossings, it was 1999. In the spring, just a few months ago, we regained the dubious ranking of the #1 illegal border crossing for San Diego sector. And it's because they know that in San Diego, in California, our state and local politicians are going to undercut the job of Border Patrol through all these sanctuary state and open border policies. And so when people think that border is a federal issue, oh, no, 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 no. It is as much a state issue, and Greg Abbott is proving that day in, day out, as is Gavin Newsom. But these terror watch suspects, by the way, that story, we finally got that information to Fox and New York Post. And you can actually Google that apprehension because we were able to get that whistleblower information out to the media. And my good friend Bill Malusian of Fox News, if you watch Bill's stuff, you got to follow him on Twitter. Boy, this guy has the footage at the border. You go down east on the E8, you go to Campo, you go to Boulevard, you go to Acamba, you're going to find tent cities, camps everywhere. And again, these camps are impacting our environment. I did a border town hall with the folks out in Campo, and they told me about the 911 response times that are completely overwhelmed because 911 is diverted to those border camps to take care of those individuals versus the citizens who rely on a 911 system that is now completely overwhelmed. Now, here locally, we have a board of supervisors. We don't just have a legislature and a governor that's got sanctuary state and giving welfare benefits. We've got local politicians that are wanting to help illegal immigrants work the system, navigate the system, to apply for welfare benefits. In October, County Supervisor Joel Anderson proposed that, #1, the county set aside $6 million every 90 days to hire social service workers. They call them navigators. Your taxpayer money locally to hire navigators to help illegal immigrants work the system, to apply for benefits, to get travel documentation, to fly all over the place. But a lot of them are going to stay here so that they can apply for welfare. What is so offensive about this is not just the impact on making illegal immigration worse. But I'll tell you right now, if you have $6 million for illegal immigrants to work the system to get benefits, what are you going to do about our vets who have to stand in the back of the line while their benefits are turned down time and time again? Mr. Anderson, shame on you. And now the county is starting to talk about where would we site migrant camps. I have an idea. How about on the other side of the border, because we got a secure border? How about we site them over there and see if the Mexican government likes to do anything about it? One final point about these state and local officials. Rodney Scott, former border sector chief for San Diego. In fact, I think I was on a ride-along with Rodney Scott on one of his last ride-alongs in San Diego sector. And as we were riding along, I had heard, Rodney, I hear you're going to Washington. I hear Trump wants you to go and help out in Washington. And he said, yes. And so he went off and became Trump's border czar, Border Patrol chief. Of course, Biden very quickly fired him because Rodney's all about securing the border. But Rodney and I have been talking, and I believe that when President Trump gets elected, that Rodney's in a very good position, and I hope all goes well. I think he'd be a wonderful border chief. That's ultimately up to President Trump, but I think he was doing a great job. I think everyone knows that. But I said, Rodney, if you do get appointed, and if you're insane enough to take the job, if you're patriotic enough to take the job, I want to be your partner in San Diego sector to make sure that you know that we have your back every step of the way. And so we have change coming, but I want you to walk away from today's town hall absolutely knowing that the border is not going to be secure just by changing federal policy. We must demand policy change in California. We have to end the open borders policies. We've got to end the welfare benefits. We've got to end sanctuary states so our police officers and sheriff's deputies and court officials can coordinate and cooperate with ICE and Border Patrol. We have to make sure that we enact a provision that would require the governor to deploy the National Guard when certain metrics of illegal crossings are triggered. We have to make sure that we are in a position where we can cross-deputize, which Bill Clinton, by the way, cross-deputized local law enforcement and Border Patrol so they can work as seamlessly as possible. Again, this is already a tough enough issue, but we can do this if state, federal, and local officials work together, and that's not going to happen in California. And finally, we have to make sure that when, don't say if, because we know it's coming, when President Trump starts signing all those executive orders, and he starts telling the contractors, start getting that wall put back up, and we're going to do all of these changes for Remain in Mexico, what you're going to find is, just like the last time around, the state of California will use your taxpayer money to file lawsuits against the federal government to trip him up every step of the way and delay implementation of his common sense border policies. When that happens, 4 years ago, not a single Republican elected official at the state or local levels spoke out against those lawsuits. When that happens, when they go after Trump in the courts, we need to go absolutely into the streets to have his back and explain how our state and local government officials are wasting our money and making us less secure in this state. He needs to know that he has partners in California that will work with him and have his back. Finally, one last point. People say, well, why do you always talk about voter ID and the border? Well, I'll tell you why I'm talking about voter ID and the border. Unless we can secure the border, we are not going to have elections in California that we can have confidence in. Our elections are a mess. We don't do verification of citizenship. We know that the law requires that we ask people to register to vote no matter what their status is. And of course, when you say, well, why are we allowing caseworkers at the Social Service Agency or DMV to give an illegal immigrant a voter registration packet, which is required under state law, by the way. They have to give the voter registration packet. What Lorena Gonzalez says, who authored the law, well, of course the illegal immigrants won't fill out the paperwork. Look, let me just say, I think most of these non-citizens are filling out paperwork not knowing what they're doing. And so I say what the Democrats are doing with these requirements is they're putting these people in jeopardy. They're flooding our voter rolls with ineligible citizens that are not eligible to vote. So here's the deal. I don't want people to doubt election outcomes anymore. And because we know we've had an open border, we've got to secure our elections just as we secure our border. And the only way to do that is to enact California voter ID, which requires, very simply, by the way, 28 states have voter ID. So it's not like this is somehow earth-shattering. And the Supreme Court has already said it's absolutely legal. But number one, it requires that when you vote, you have an identification, a driver's license, and you can use the last digits on the outside of the mail-in ballot, but you have to have a license on the mail-in ballot or in person. Number two, that the license must be for a citizen-verified registrant. Number three, it requires that we go through our existing voter rolls, and on a go-forward basis, anyone who comes in to register to vote, their citizenship must be verified before they are put on the voter rolls. Number four, if someone's address comes back as not verified at any time, they don't automatically get a mail-in ballot. They can always request one. Just, I don't want anyone to go without a ballot in an election. I want to make it easy. But no automatic mailing of orphan ballots, which has been a problem. And finally, we have to make sure that the signature matches. We also require that all of this be audited to ensure that they are not flouting the requirements. And this is a state constitutional amendment. It's not a law. It's a state constitutional amendment that you, as any individual citizen, will have standing in a state court to sue on and compel a county to comply with it. We're going to need 1 million signatures. and we are going to put this on the next ballot, and we're going to restore the integrity of our elections with California voter ID. Now, I need you to understand those policy changes will not happen if you flee this state. I'm imploring you to understand that this is not just a federal fight, it is a state fight. If you leave California and you give up the fight, if you care about a secure border, if you care about the security of your country, as tough as it is to stomach sticking it out in California, you gotta stay and fight in this difficult trench. And I will tell you this, not just on this issue, I would not be asking you to stay and fight if I did not firmly believe that we were not able to get back the California we once were proud of. We don't have to flee. There's so much to love about our state. The only thing we need to hate about our state is our corrupt, awful, left-wing government. I want you to know I would not be standing here today and asking you to stay and fight if it weren't just about the border, but also that we weren't able to get back our state. We are. We're able to do this. What I want you to do is when you leave today, I want you to go out and spread the word, and I want you to give hope. Hope to your neighbor, hope to your friend, hope to your family members who've given up hope and are looking to leave this state, who aren't volunteering, who are not voting. I want you to give them hope and let them know that, no, we've got to do this and we can do this. So let me transition to kind of the story behind the story. Because what Chris Harris is going to tell you are things that you are not hearing about in the liberal media. But it's what every Border Patrol agent knows because they live it and they breathe it every day. We have a severe recruitment retention crisis right now going on in Border Patrol. People are being smeared. They're being called thugs. They're being called racist. And that's by our own president, by the way. That's by our own president, Kamala Harris. And so here's the deal. These Border Patrol agents are sticking it out despite what a tough job it is because they love this country and they care about your safety. And so I want you to hear what it really is like for them. And I want you to think about them on an individual level when you commit yourself to this fight. With that, my good friend for many years, Christopher Harris, retired Border Patrol agent, retired director of the Border Patrol National Council, San Diego sector.
Normally when I do speaking engagements, I don't use these. Can everybody hear me without this, or is it better if I use it?
We have to have it.
Oh, okay, no worries. So I'm usually pretty dynamic. I usually walk through the audience and whatnot, but I'll make Carl happy and stay up here. So just a couple things about me so you know what I'm talking about. I stay within my wheelhouse. I do speaking engagements. I've been in the media. I've done CNN, Fox News. I've been in Tucker Carlson. 36 years back when he was in Manhattan. 36 years in law enforcement. I started at the ripe old age of 18 back in New York. I was a New York State correction officer. You got to be 21 now. I worked at a fun little place called Sing Sing. Realized that job sucked. I'm from New York. I'm Irish. I swear, if I do, I just don't give a crap. So I became a cop, a treasury officer, and then a federal agent with U.S. Border Patrol. I spent the last 22 years as a federal agent with U.S. Border Patrol, Imperial Beach Border Patrol Station, San Diego sector. I've worked out in Campo. I've worked out in El Centro. I've worked in Ajo and Douglas, Arizona. So it's not just been here, but this has been where I was stationed. I was also a union official, not the head of the union. I was director of legislative political affairs in this area. Doing that, I had to go to D.C. I testified for the Senate. So I've done different levels. I've met with mayors. I've met with city council members. That's my background in this. I've known Carl for many years now. And he's one of the few politicians and elected officials, not the only one, but one of the few, that for years now has been coming to me and the union and Border Patrol agents when he can to find out what's actually going on at the border. I'm happy to talk to any elected official or person running for office or politician. He's one of the few that's taken me up on it. I used to give border tours. He's been down on there. From when I was with the union official, we gave border tours with Rodney Scott's blessing. With Rodney Scott's blessing, because they could tell us stuff that he couldn't tell them the media and the people that I could. And I've remained that. The last time I was at the border was last week when Vance was down there. I was with one of our county supervisors, Jim Desmond, with a bunch of people from Orange County, and showing them what's going on at the border, and meeting them for lunch later on. So I keep involved. I get numbers from the Border Patrol. He touched on so many points, and I don't think I'm going to remember them all. And I just go stream of conscience. I never plan what I'm going to say ahead of time. The Border Patrol is under attack. And he brought up that we get told we're racist or we're xenophobic or whatever. On the southwestern border, the Border Patrol is 60-some% people of color. I'll use that term because it's politically correct. I don't usually really care about politically correct, but that's a term. Out of that, about 60% are Hispanic, Latino. Some were born in Mexico, Ecuador, different countries, and they became naturalized citizens. A lot of them are prior military. A lot. Because of our unique area, we get even people from the SEALs and other special operators. These are people that love this country, love the Constitution. And they're getting hammered. And it wasn't just President Biden, it was AOC and others that said they were racist, jackbooted thugs. Right, 60-some% are people of color. I had CNN on a border tour one time, and afterwards they said, Chris, everybody we spoke to, they could speak to the agents, they just couldn't show their faces or their names. He said, everybody we spoke to had a Hispanic surname. Did you set it up? I'm like, yeah, I have that much power in the Border Patrol that I get assigned people where they're going to work. That's just the way it worked today. And if you're an Anglo like me, you marry into a Mexican family. My wife is from Mexico. She became a U.S. citizen, very proud of her. She did it the right way. Well, that is worth it. So this is a federal thing, but as Carl said, it goes down, all the way down. And I'm going to start with just a micro look at things at the border. In a 1-week period, the last one I got numbers from sector, San Diego sector. In San Diego sector, because we are ground zero now, because Abbott is doing such a good job, we had 4,000 apprehensions in 1 week from 53 different countries. Almost 150, including China and Russia. We'll talk about that in a second. Including 150 unaccompanied minors. And since fentanyl is on everybody's mind now, or it should be, 187 pounds seized in 1 week. I think it was 215 pounds of meth, 90 pounds of coke. So it's hitting us here directly, because this is ground zero now. I was here in '99 when we were out of control. It was a different out of control. It was mostly Mexican nationals. We just sent them back to Mexico. We are now getting people from 170 countries around the world claiming amnesty. So I'm going to just talk about that quickly. We have an amnesty system, and God bless it. We are a country that does welcome people. Amnesty was a last resort for people around the world where your government was trying to kill you, was trying to commit genocide against your people. That's what it was made for. It has been stretched out of all semblance of reality by this administration and the cartels, the transnational criminal organizations, and make no bones about it. Everything that comes across that southwest border that's illegal or illicit, be it money, people, weapons, drugs, whatever, is either owned outright by the cartels or whoever's doing it has to pay the price, the plaza, to that cartel. So the cartels own it. And what they figured out, I'm going to digress here. So when Trump ran, he came to the National Border Patrol Council, that's our union, and he said, after meeting with us, I'm going to consider you guys our subject matter experts. Not La Raza, not some Harvard professor, but you guys. And he listened to us. He did walk the walk. He gave us what we needed. He said, what do you need to secure the border? We told him. Well, the cartels figured out how to game the asylum system. We have to do step one foot on American soil and play incredible fear. I'm afraid if you send me back. Well, international law says the first country you get to after you leave your country, you're safe. You're out of that country, you wait your turn. That's a very American thing, and Carl touched on that. It's very American that you wait your turn. It's about fairness and justice. So they started gaming the asylum system. The first caravans came up in summer 2018. And by the way, our intelligence units at the Border Patrol are fantastic. They tracked back a lot of the money and organizational for those first caravans to George Soros people and Venezuelan intelligence. And if it's Venezuelan intelligence, that means Cuban intelligence, that means Russian intelligence. And make no bones about it, there are a lot of foreign nation states that hate us and want us to fail. They want us to fall. So the caravans came up, they all started claiming credible fear, I want asylum. And it was based on a script they were giving depending on the geopolitical area of the world they were coming from. And I'll give you an example. And I like to use ones that I was involved with so I know they're true. Arrested a Chinese national. He's claiming he wants asylum, he's a Christian, and he's being persecuted. Well, we know that happens. Now, I'm a Christian. I'm not a good one. I have to work on it. You could ask my wife. So I say, but I know the central tenets of my faith. So I said, tell me about Jesus Christ. And he looks up in the air, and he says, he was a friend of Buddha's. Well, Buddha and Jesus Christ lived a couple thousand years apart. So JC and Buddha were not cracking beers together. He's lying. He's lying. He's gaming the system. So depending where they're coming from, they're going to have a script for that. Well, numbers spiked up. Trump said, what can I do? We said, well, this is what will work. We know you're not going to be able to get it. Well, he did. It's commonly called the Remain in Mexico policy, but it's the Migrant Protection Protocols. He hammered out an agreement with the president of Mexico, who was a socialist, President López. There was carrot and sticks, and we have a lot of sticks in our arsenals to use against Mexico. I won't go into it. If somebody wants to ask me questions later on, I will, but he got the agreement. You get to Mexico, you're coming from China, you're being persecuted because you're Christian. You're in Mexico, you're safe now. The Chinese government is not persecuting you here. You're going to remain in Mexico. You're going to wait your turn in line, and then you'll have a hearing. And the hearing officer, asylum hearing officer, will adjudicate your case, whether you deserve to be allowed in. And if they decide, yes, God bless, welcome to America. The numbers plummeted by about 90%. By the way, the GAO, the Government Accountability Office, which is a nonpartisan group, has said that almost 90% will not show up for their hearings. Now, the left will tell you 90% get approved. Yes, that's out of the 10% that show up. So if you have a real case, you are going to show up, and that makes sense. But 90% won't show up. So that system, on the first day that Biden took it, this administration took office, by an executive order, he undid it. And then sits there and says, there's nothing I could do about it. Sure, you undid it, you could make it back in place. So you're being overwhelmed by asylee seekers. The parole system is another system that's being abused unlawfully. The law is very clear. Parole was on an individual basis. An example would be you're in Mexico City, you need a special type of brain surgery. They only do it at some type of medical center in LA. You go to the US government, they give you parole, and it's through the Secretary of Homeland Security, not him personally, he's got somebody assigned to do it, but you come and you get your surgery and you go back to Mexico. We're doing 40,000 a month under the parole system from 4 countries, Cuba, Nicaragua, Venezuela, and Haiti. 40,000 a month are being flown in, and they're not counted as illegals. So the numbers you see is not the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So that's 2 big problems there. At the local level, you have a sanctuary state by law, and I'll tell you how this affects you. The local police, the sheriffs, cannot work with us. We used to. I used to work all the time, called PD Transport out of my station. We would liaison with the local police. We'd be downtown Sallyport for San Diego PD. We'd meet with the sheriffs, either on car stops, vehicle stops, because they wanted a translator. They wanted us to hook somebody up for being illegal. All that, we put criminal holds on them. Can no longer do that. What that means to you is, at a checkpoint, a Border Patrol checkpoint, if we have a drunk driver, we cannot call the police to come get them. We can, they won't come. We have to let that drunk driver down the road, and that is the truth. Seen it personally. I'm going to give you a case that happened about 2 years ago upstate California. There was an illegal alien, and I use that term because that's an acceptable legal term. There was an illegal alien, and he had a woman in his life that he had 2 children with. He beat her so bad that he got a year in county jail. When he got released, the judge set up where he could see his children at a church with the church official as a monitor. So he goes there one day and meets his 2 children. The church monitor's there. Some of you might remember this. It's in the news. He shoots and kills the church monitor, shoots and kills his 2 children, and then shoots and kills himself, which I don't really care about. That sheriff had the cojones to come out and say, that's sanctuary state, that's what caused it. He said, because I used to be able to tell ICE when I was releasing someone, they would have hooked them up and deported them, set them up for deportation, put them in the federal detention center. He said, I couldn't let them know by law. That's what sanctuary state policies get you. That's what that gets you. Carl mentioned vetting and stuff when we let people in. The vetting on these people who are coming now is a farce. We do fingerprint them. We take their fingerprints. We take their pictures. I used to tell them, if you want to tell me your name is Mickey Mouse, that's cool. That name's going to go with you with the federal government forever with these fingerprints. But I'll tell you, we don't have access to databases. Venezuela won't tell us anything. And they're sending up their gangs here. Tren de Aragua and others. So they're emptying out their prisons, they're sending us their criminals and malcontents and all that. Several years ago, we had a guy at my sister station. I got involved as a union guy from Chula Vista. Guys from El Salvador. Our intel team was taking time to talk to them. They're really good at questioning. They ran all the records checks they could. They came back what we call 1040, non-derogatory. Nothing bad. They're going to walk him out the door with an NTA, notice to appear, piece of paperwork. On the way out, he says something about these homicides. He thought that might trip him up. Whoa, 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 come on back in, let's talk some more. So they questioned him more and more and more. They went to the El Salvadoran consulate. 5 homicides. This guy owned 5 homicides. He was going to walk out the door. That's what's happening now, but at a much grander scale. In the last 3 years and 8 months, we've had over 10 million encounters and apprehensions. Most are being released to the United States. I like to be very conservative with my numbers, so nobody in the press or the media or anybody can say, oh, you said 1 million was 980,000. So I'm going to use this as conservative as I can. So let's say 11 million now, we're at that number. Let's just say 10 million. Let's just say 10% are bad. I think the number's much higher. In the Imperial Beach Border Patrol area of operations, when I was working, about 60% were bad guys. They were tatted up. The first thing I would do was cuff them up and say, who do you bang with? Who do you affiliate with? And they'd be glad to tell you. 18th Street, MS-13. But let's just say it's only 10% that are bad. And what I mean by bad is actual criminals. I mean cartel. I mean gangbangers. I mean up to including terrorists. I mean people from foreign nation states that mean us ill, Russia, China, Venezuela, Iran, etc., North Korea, who are their intelligence operatives or their military operatives. So, you're talking about 10% of 10 million, that's 1 million bad people. And let's just say 1% of that is the real bad. That's still 10,000 people we've allowed into this country. There's a woman here that we went to the academy together. She's a retired supervisory agent. We were at the border not too long ago. We took pictures of Russian nationals. The guy was buffed out, clean clothes, what we call a military-age man, a crew cut. We're almost in a shooting war with Russia. Has anybody ever heard of the GRU or Spetsnaz? That's their special forces. Absolutely. We're letting him go into our country. We're letting Chinese nationals into our country, military-age men, single men, no women, with them, by the thousands, by the tens of thousands. And again, I'm going to tell a quick story so you know that I know what I'm talking about. My station was tasked with going to certain military bases when foreign nationals try to come onto the base. I'm not going to go into too much in operational security, but if a foreign national tried to get on a military base, let's say Coronado, Naval Air Station, North Island, we got sent out. I got a call one day out there, the gate, the military personnel at the gate stopped the vehicle. 5 Chinese women in the vehicle. The 2 in the front seat, driver and passenger, were young, giggly 20-somethings. There were 2 in the back seat on either window, young 20-something, giggling girls. The woman in the middle, in the back seat, about 40, 50 years old. Stone cold serious. So because of the nature of what country it was, not only did I get called out, but a special agent from NCIS got called out. So we're talking and we're looking at them, and at the same time we look at each other and go, she's Chinese intelligence. She was watching everything. They're looking how they can gain access to our bases. They're looking to what our responses are. And if you pay attention to the news, because the national media won't do it, but if you get enough local at bases around the country now, this is happening more and more frequently. I've stopped people at military bases from Saudi Arabia. So we're letting these people in that we don't know who they are, we're not vetting them, and we're letting them into our country. And I don't want to be hyperbole or rhetoric or doom and gloom, but I think bad things are coming. I think if anything pushes off against Taiwan, with China over Taiwan, our infrastructure is going to go down. This is something that affects us as a nation state. And I'm just going to end it with this a little bit. Every nation state has the right under international law to control their border. There's not been one country in the history of mankind that has lasted if they can't control their border. Ask the Roman Empire. I'm going to end it with this. He talked about the morale on the Border Patrol and what we go through. It is the worst I've ever seen it. We have a mandatory retirement age of 57. A few years ago, people would come to the union trying to get a waiver to stay past 57. Now people are leaving as soon as they can, the bare minimum they have to retire, at 50 years old or whatever, they're bailing. Never saw that before. This administration treats them like crap. These are men and women, like I said, from the military and other walks of life, former law enforcement. They care. I've had 5 law enforcement agencies in my career. I've never seen, all good, but I've never seen one where so many of the agents, the men and women, truly believe in this country, truly believe in the Constitution, and want to protect it. And when I used to meet with congressmen and senators, I say, I have the easiest union job in the world. Yeah, we want better equipment and this and that, but what we really want is we want to be able to work harder. The men and women want to be able to work harder. So elect people at all levels who will let the men and women of the United States Border Patrol do their jobs, protect this country, protect this Constitution, and protect you. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. We're going to take questions in a moment. People always say, Carl, I'm now educated. I've learned a lot. I'm going to tell my friends about the issue. What else can I do? There are 3 things that you can do in this election. Number 1, our most important weapon against the left in California, because they got money, they got the lying liberal media on their side. They do not have a movement. You are the movement that they fear. They love it when you feel powerless. They love it when you give up hope, when you become depressed, because that means that you're going to give up and you're not going to fight them. But if this movement rises up and on a grassroots basis talks to each other, talks to friends, family members, neighbors, educates them and activates them and gives them hope, you will trump the media and the money that's their big advantage. Understand how powerful you really are. I'm not exaggerating that. All of you are worth 10 television ads and all the mailers of lies that the swamp sends out. And you might say, well, Carl, in my area, what difference does it make? Well, first, on the issue of border, if we don't maintain our defense House seats in California, and there are 7 seats we could lose. You know what the House majority hangs in the balance by? 2. 2. I told the Trump folks, look, I know that you're not going to do a lot of campaigning out here, but recognize that we've got your back on these target seats because President Trump needs a Republican majority when he is sworn in so he can get the job done. Those 7 seats are precious because if we lose 2, 3, 4, or 5 of them, that could be the margin by which we lose the House. And then Nancy Pelosi is Speaker again. Make no mistake about it, she would be the one that's Speaker. Like the Crypt Keeper, she's just never going away. And so, you don't think in California we are relevant? House seats are relevant in California. Those 7 seats are precious. We actually have 3 seats we could flip. And I believe we could go to 10 toss-up seats that we're holding in California and move the needle. But also, on these local elections, these state elections, flipping seats and getting people who are opposed to tax increases and are not going to be giving the welfare benefits out. So the first thing that you can do, number 1, is go to your friends, family, and neighbors with the Plain English Reform California Voter Guide. You guys have the statewide guide that you were given when you walked in. It's on the website, SanDiegoElectionGuide.org. And you need to share this because most voters don't vote because they are so intimidated by the complexity of the ballot. They don't know what they're voting on ballot measures because these liars in Sacramento and locally have hidden bad policies. Yes means no, no means yes. Give them the confidence of voting the right way by giving them that Plain English Voter Guide. And by the way, I always say on our voter guide, the reason why it's so strategic and so helpful, come for the ballot measures, stay for the candidates. The backside of the voter guide is always our great candidates. Now, I never endorse someone because they're the lesser of 2 evils. I endorse someone because we believe in that candidate. And so the candidates for school board are all pro-parent. The candidates for state legislature and local government are anti-tax and they are pro-border security. Same thing at the federal level. So a lot of times people don't know whether these are good or bad candidates. Give them the voter guide because it really has been researched for them. Number two, I need you to volunteer. How do you volunteer? Sign up today. We've got the clipboards. We've got a sign-up sheet at the back. You can volunteer by bringing a bunch of your friends back to this room in October for free beer and barbecue. Barbecue, beer, and ballots. Who's been to one of my BBBs? Barbecue, beer, and ballots? Help me pack the house with the barbecue, beer, and ballot events. We've got 40 of these suckers around San Diego County. You are the event host. You bring 5 of your friends. That's being you as a volunteer. We need to stuff envelopes. We got envelope bins in the back, or we run out of them already. We got envelope bins in the back that need number 10 envelopes handwritten where we can get the voter guides out. Please make phone calls. Please walk your doors in your neighborhood. We've got door hangers that are arriving on Friday. We will get them out to you, and we will give you a list on your cell phone of who you can call and who you can knock on. I'm going to have you skip the liberal homes because I don't want you to get beaten up at the door. I'm going to have you skip the perfect Republicans because you're going to waste your time. I'm going to send you to people who've given up hope and may not vote in this election because you can give them that nudge as a volunteer. Finally, if you can contribute, we are up against millions of dollars of the Sacramento swamp. They're trying to defeat us on the ballot measures, statewide and locally. They're spending dark money against us to fool voters. They're coming after me in my race because I'll tell you right now, I'm angering both the establishment rhinos in the Republican Party and, of course, the Democrats. And they're trying to gang up, which is how the swamp works. They did it to Trump. They're doing it to us. I need you to give us at least some financial support if you can. If not, just be a volunteer. But we need contributions in these last 52 days of this election. It's so crucial because we are up against the machine. Let me show you this crap that they put out. Look at this. You can't contribute to help us get the word out. These are just some of the lying mailers that were sent in my race for assembly. By the way, Carl DeMaio wants an open border. Bitch, please. I mean, come on. But these people will lie. They will lie. They know, as Churchill said, a lie gets halfway around the world before truth gets out of bed to put its pants on. I need you to be my truth bomb. I need you to be my truth bomb in your neighborhood. When those lying sacks show up with their mailers, I need you to take a picture of the mailer, let me know. We'll put it on carlfacts.org. We'll give people the truth and the response and the facts. And then I need you to go to your neighbors and say, you see this piece of garbage? It's a lie. Don't pay no mind. And the more people that are angry with him, it must mean he's doing something right. So send him into the swamp and let him shake it up. It's at least it's going to be entertaining to watch. I promise you a lot of entertainment while we're up there. So with that, let me open it up to questions, comments, suggestions. Ma'am, right back there, you shot that hand up. Go ahead, stand up and speak out.
My name is Jennifer Royston, and I'm here because I am very concerned about San Diego County, and I would like to know, what are we going to do about the trafficking that involves our officials? That is the problem. It involves our officials. My husband and I are being hunted every single night. Our streets are bare. I mean, we take video. Coronado, my father worked there for 25 years. It is desolate. Where are our soldiers? Where is our soldiers to protect here?
I appreciate the question. A couple things that you can do right away. Number one, the type of politicians we put into office are either going to protect us or they're going to open us up to threats. They are disparaging not only our Border Patrol agents, they disparage our police officers and first responders at every turn. That is why, in addition to changing our politicians, we've got to restore the authority of police and prosecutors to arrest and punish criminals by passing Proposition 36 on your ballot. It is the Make Crime Illegal Again initiative in California. And by the way, it does have a nexus to border because it ups the fentanyl drug trafficking crimes, and it ups various other crimes that are related to human trafficking for us to go after these people. If you get these human traffickers on a lower crime, it takes them off the street. You then can investigate and go after them for the bigger crimes. I'm telling you, it's not the silver bullet. But we have real things on this November ballot that will make a substantial difference in improving the safety of all of our neighborhoods, and that is what we are fighting for. Yes?
Hi, I'm Marty Dawson from Fallbrook. I think one of the most horrible things is that, and somehow, I don't know how, we gotta fix the political donation system, which is utterly corrupt.
Yep.
We don't need Soros, who I call Sauron, the dark lord of evil, you know, all of it.
The dark money in politics.
It's horrible.
Absolutely. Let me tell you this.
So,
Again, I don't want you to feel powerless, because they do have the dark money of the lobbyists, of the union bosses, of the CEOs of the corporations. Let me tell you, big business is not a friend of small business. Big business wants an open border because they want cheap labor. Big business is okay with mandates and regulations that crush small businesses, the mom and pops, because they don't want the competition from mom and pops. And so if you think big business isn't in the tank for the left, well, take a look at George Soros. He's a hedge fund guy. This guy's got all the big businesses. Where do you think all of his liberal money comes from? Big business. They're crushing the small guys. And so this dark money is an immense obstacle for us to overcome. And then they get the free media, of course, with lying outlets. But I do not want you to feel powerless, because your opinion, your personal impact you have on friends, families, and neighbors is worth more than the money that they're able to spend against us. And so, and let me tell you, you want to know why Republicans cave in Sacramento and in Washington? They cave because they're seduced by the almighty campaign dollar. They give us up. The Republican Party of California is backing Proposition 2, which is a boondoggle $10 billion bond that funds Democrat politicians through project labor agreements. And they signed off on this because they were given hundreds of thousands of dollars from the building industry. Because they said, look, let's just have taxpayers borrow this money because we don't want to pay for it locally. Another thing that we're seeing is that money is flowing into the Republican Party of San Diego. The newspaper today reports that they're dead broke. They're overbalanced. They've overdrawn in their bank account because nobody believes in them anymore. That's why we ran a slate to kick out their Central Committee members in March, and our new people are coming in, new day, in December. But on the way out, they went to the Democrats in Sacramento and said, can we get some money? And if we can keep a piece of it, we'll go after Republicans you don't like. And that's exactly what they're doing in San Diego County. So you have to you understand that the big money seduces politicians on both sides. You know who can't be bought? Donald Trump can never be bought. He can never be bought. And that's why they hate him and want to destroy him. Understand that they know they have no influence on him. In the back, please. Yes, go ahead, ma'am. In purple, stand up and speak loudly. I don't know if that's true. It is true. Look, let me just tell you this. Okay. We have a program for election integrity that I want you to follow. When you come to the barbecue beer and ballot event, we do go through the voter guide, but we also go through how to track and verify that your vote was actually counted. All right? I know a lot of people say, well, if the postal union endorses Harris, that I can't mail him a ballot. Look, we will walk you through a fail-safe way to track your ballot when you come to the barbecue beer and ballots event. It will also be addressed on my podcast. By the way, even though we stepped down from AM radio, we now have, and we've had for the past year and a half, our daily show on YouTube and on all the digital platforms, including iHeartRadio app. Every day at 5 o'clock, the show goes up. We're going to have a show dedicated just to how to mail in your ballot early, why voting early is better than going on election day, and how to track your ballot, and why, yes, you can trust the Postal Service in the first 3 or 4 days. Don't mail in your ballot in the last 2 weeks. Walk it in. Walk it in. Yeah. But in the first week, it's okay to do mail, but don't dilly-dally. Don't delay. Get that ballot filled out in the first 72 hours. Get it in the mail, then track it. If it's not counted by day 10, go into a polling location and get your provisional ballot. Does everyone know that under state law, you're entitled to 2 ballots in every election? If you're dead, you get 4 ballots in California. But those of you who are still alive, you get 2 ballots. That way, if you vote early, and say you're right, those darn postal workers are going to take your ballot, which is not true. Don't believe it. Don't be worried about it. But if something happens with your ballot in those first 72 hours, it doesn't arrive, you now get your provisional ballot and you vote in person. But we got to start educating our friends and family that if we wait till election day, we're suppressing our own vote and we give up the opportunity to verify our ballot was actually received and counted. I don't want anyone to be disenfranchised. And too many ballots are rejected after the election and not curable because of some sort of default or flaw or mismatch on the signature. Yes, sir, in blue right here. Go ahead and stand up.
Regarding voter ID.
Yes.
So, outside of offering your birth certificate, how is one going to prove that they're a citizen?
How do you prove with voter ID a citizenship status? How many of you have had to go into the DMV in the last 4 years to get something called the real ID? Oh, so some of you have been on airplanes in the last 4 years, I see. Look, we already have a system in place for verification that is pretty darn good. We also have 28 other states that do a verification protocol that I think California should implement as well. Here's the problem. The people who are registered to vote have not all been verified. The first step will be to take the voter rolls and match that up to real ID driver's licenses and immediately grandfather them in because they've been vetted and they've gone through the verification process. For those that remain, we send them 2 years before the election. There's a lot of time to do this. You send them a notification that in order to vote, you don't have to come in and get a real ID. I guess you don't fly on airplanes anymore. But it's going to be a small group of people. You need to come in and verify your citizenship status. Otherwise, we're going to put your voter registration on provisional status. And if you do show up to vote, you will have to, in the 30 days after the election, come in and verify your eligibility. This takes 1 cycle to clean up and perfect our voter lists. Don't let anyone tell you that we can't get it done. 20 other states have done it perfectly well. We deserve it in California. In red back there, go ahead and stand up.
As an independent voter, I listen to a lot of both sides.
Yeah.
Decide wrong, decide wrong. You're going to go up and hopefully in the state assembly, you're going to be faced with a minority. You're not going to be in the majority.
Right.
You're going to have to get a lot of things accomplished in that majority, with that majority. Are you going to be able to work with the majority to get those things accomplished? Because as we saw in this last thing, it doesn't seem to matter who's president. If Trump's president, it seems Melissa shuts him down with the border wall. Biden's president, he's going to get shut down by the other side with this border bill that it
Yeah.
It's going to happen both ways. Both sides have a time for us independents. How's that change?
First, your question is on the mind of a lot of people. Thank you for asking it. It's a very common sense question. Let me answer it this way. I'll repeat the question. She said, Carl, you're a Republican. I'm an independent voter. I listen to both sides. And you're going to go up and be part of a super minority. The Democrats have all the power. They got the governorship. They've got a super majority in both chambers. How are you going to get things done? Are you going to work with the other side? And here's my answer. I'm not just going to tell you I'm going to make things happen. I've already done it. When I was elected to the San Diego City Council, I was on the losing end of a 2-6 super minority. And by the way, you know who my wingman was, the other Republican? Kevin Faulconer. Not like the guy that would stand up and have my back. But here's the deal. I'm still supporting him for supervisor. He's infinitely better than the other one that's in there right now. But what I did is I reached out to Democrats and I sat down and I said, where are the things that we actually can work on together? And there were some. Donna Fry and I were early partners in taking on the corrupt Center City Development Corp, the downtown developers that stole our tax increment, took money away from police and fire and neighborhoods and road repairs, and we said enough, we're in a fiscal crisis. It's time for them to pay their fair share. We need that money back. And we basically shut down that racket. Oh, I was vilified by the big business groups for that. But it was the right thing to do, and it was part of us avoiding bankruptcy. Speaking of bankruptcy, the fix, we had people come to San Diego saying we're going to go bankrupt. The pension crisis was happening. The budget crisis was happening. I said, no, we are not going to go bankrupt. You don't go to a pensioner and say, we made a promise to you, but we're going to abrogate it in a court of law. And by the way, it was never going to happen. We're going to balance the budget without bankruptcy, without tax increases, and without service cuts. And people are like, oh, you're just lying. I said, no, here's the budget plan. A 1,000-page budget plan that we produced, line by line. Then they said, no, we're going to go for a tax increase. I said, fine, bring it on. But if the voters reject the tax increase, then you need to implement the budget plan. That's what I told my Democrat colleagues on the city council. The voters rejected the tax increase, Measure D, in 2010 by a 2/3 margin. We carried every one of the council members' districts. All of the Democrat districts voted with me against the tax increase. The next day, we introduced the Roadmap to Recovery Plan. How many remember me going on TV with the big book, the phone book size budget plan, saying, here it is, Roadmap to Recovery, and we got my budget plan implemented on an 8-0 vote every year for 4 years, and we saved this city from bankruptcy without tax increases and service cuts. Finally, when I go to Sacramento, I'm going to try to do that, and then sometimes, if you go ask politicians, pretty please, even my so-called Republican colleagues, please don't back tax increases. No. You force them to do the right thing by amping up the political pressure. So here's what I'm going to promise you. And nothing's going to happen overnight. But what I'm going to promise you is, first, you don't have a voice in Sacramento right now. You don't have Republicans who are willing to speak out for you and present your side. Democrats are not certainly doing it because I think they've got the wrong policies. What I promise you is this, is that you will have a voice of both sides that you will hear in Sacramento. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to speak truth to power. You will have a voice of opposition. Someone will speak up for you. Second thing I will do, once you start speaking up, others start speaking up. And when others start speaking up, others start changing their votes. So the second thing that we're going to do is we are going to galvanize public pressure and stop bad policies and perhaps advance good policies. That's already happening right now. The human trafficking bill, SB 14 with Shannon Grove. It was defeated by Democrats last July. But we created a statewide anger, an uproar. And within a week, the Democrats reconvened, passed that bill unanimously. They blocked it unanimously. Then, when all hell broke loose, they passed it unanimously. In June, they tried to kill Prop 36, the Make Crime Illegal Again initiative. They said, we're not going to let you put it on the ballot. We're going to extort. We got them to back down. And now the latest poll shows 56% of Californians are voting yes on Prop 36. And the governor was forced to sign some of the legislation he was opposing in June. And so we start moving the needle there. Here's the final thing. And I make no apologies about threatening the political career of a politician who's doing wrong. Someone needs to tell them, if you do this, we will target you and defeat you in your next election to send a message to others that it can happen to them next. I will make no apologies for telling a politician if they raise your taxes or vote against the border security bills that we will go after them in their next election. I call it the gazelle strategy. I did that in 2017 when we broke the supermajority of the Democrats in the state Senate. The last time we broke the supermajority, 2017, we did a recall of State Senator Josh Newman. It was the 5th successful recall in California state history in 114 years. The 4th, Gray Davis. Reform California's recall in 2017 was the 5th successful one. When we recalled Josh Newman, I said, I would love to recall all of these tax raisers. But I can't do it because we're not strong enough. They have more money, they have more resources. But what we can do is like the gazelle strategy. When the lions want a meal, they don't all go chase after each individual gazelle. I was watching Animal Planet, by the way, the day before I said what they do is they all gang up on the slowest gazelle. And all the gazelles know this, by the way. They know, I can't be the slowest one, I better keep going. And so here's the thing I tell politicians. Yeah, there are more of you than us. You have more money and more media than we do. But I'm going to pick one of your names out of a hat, I'll do research to find out which one of you is the slowest gazelle. But you know what? There will be consequence for bad votes and bad behavior. And so all of you need to reconsider whether you're going to go along with this, because some of you will lose your seat. And my friends, that's why some Republicans are so angry with our voter guide. And that's why they say, oh, well, he threatens us. Yeah, you're damn right. Someone needs to tell you, if you back a tax increase, we're not going to list you on our voter guide. And that's within our prerogative to let your voters know you're a tax increaser. And that's why they don't like it. So what I would urge you as an independent voter, a lot of people say, I don't like partisanship, I don't like black and white. I understand that. You never know who to believe. It's tit for tat. It's always fighting. If you're happy with the direction of California, I'm not your guy. But if you want to have balance back in California, you need to help me get our Republican Party to actually stand on principle and be a functioning two-party system again. Give me 2 years, and if you don't like the results, you can vote me out. But give me 2 years, I think you'll like the changes starting in Sacramento and locally. 2 more questions. I want to get it back to border. Here we got our subject matter expert. And let me tell you, what Chris is telling you is the tip of the iceberg. You do not understand how tired Border Patrol agents are right now and how they are just hoping for the change in November so they can actually do their jobs. Because I don't know if this election doesn't, and it's going to go fine. Don't you worry about those idiotic polls. But they're holding out for November because they know help is on the way with President Trump. They know that they're going to have their back taken care of. But I want you to ask all your questions on border if you can, because you got this amazing resource here who's not muzzled by the Biden administration censorship policy. So 2 other questions if you can on border. Yes, sir, right here. Yes, sir, please stand up.
Hi, my name's Mark. I worked at the airport as security manager, TSA. I did 30 years in the Navy, so don't kill me.
God bless, thank you.
We used to augment the Border Patrol and send people down there, presumably to let Border Patrol do more law enforcement actions. Is that still going on? And then I need to know your thoughts on CBP-1 app, because we piloted it in San Diego.
All right, so if TSA was sending people down, Viper teams or whatever, they were probably going through the port of entry. That's not generally the Border Patrol. I'm not going to give a whole thing that CBP, Customs Border Protection, is 3 components. People all the time say, you know what, I support you guys. When we go to the port, you guys are kind of idiots. I'm like, what color uniform? Blue. That ain't us. That's Office of Field Operations. Border Patrol's in green. But yeah, TSA did send teams down, put Viper teams and other to the ports of entry. Probably not happening anymore. There's almost no enforcement at the border. Most of the Border Patrol agents are doing babysitting, and that's why they're leaving. They came on to be federal agents, and they're processing, and and the northern border is in trouble because they're sending people from the northern border down here for several weeks at a time. The part 2 of your question was CBP-1. That's a horror show. That's again, this is the most opaque, 5 administrations, opaque administration I've ever seen. They obfuscate numbers, they hide them, they switch them around, it's a shell game. So one of the ways to make the numbers look lower is to come up with this app called CBP-1. And what you do is whatever country, you sign on to it, and it's supposed to give you a date and time to cross through a port of entry, thereby making you an illegal asylum seeker. Those numbers don't count in the total encounters and apprehensions for people coming in illegally. And real aside on that, when you jump the fence, cross the border at other than a port of entry, that is a crime. Don't anybody left say, oh, it's not illegal. It's 8 United States Code 1325, entry without inspection. So when you jump the fence and then say, I want asylum, you are still guilty of breaking the law. They will never prosecute them. But understand that when somebody says, oh, these are asylum seekers, it's all legal. Nah, the majority of them are jumping the fence because they don't want to wait in line. They jump the fence, they get processed, and we release them to NGOs. It's a whole other thing, including in San Diego County, and that's taxpayer money, a lot of it. And they're being moved on planes with no ID. You try flying with no ID. They're moved on planes and other things to different parts of the country. So CBP-1, in my opinion, and in my experience, is a scam. It's a scam to bring in hundreds of thousands a month without you seeing those numbers. That's a scam.
One last question. Make it on border if you can, because we got great extra. Yes, ma'am, right here in green. Stand up, please, so we can hear you. Yes.
Yeah, so I heard Credit Badge Sestrin, she just interviewed an IDF officer, and he reported that Hamas has been sending people down to our border to help build tunnels.
All right, so that's a really great question. What she said was Hamas and on the border and building tunnels. We've known for years that Hamas and Hezbollah have training camps in Mexico. What we found out is when the bad guys in the Middle East, ISIS and others, when they do a certain tactic, within 2 years, the cartels are doing that. The cartels are using drones now. They're dropping bombs on each other. Like a real quick thing is, just so you know, and I don't get into the second minute, but it has to do with the border. The weapons the cartels have are not being bought at mom and pop gun shops in the U.S. or gun shows. They're buying them on the international arms market. They're buying them from China. The cartels are a nation state in themselves. They're billions of dollars. They can listen into our phones on the border. We know that. That's something that only a nation state can do. So I understand that. What was your question again? I'm Irish. I just Hamas and Hezbollah. Thank you. So the tunnels. So we've worked with IDF, and I don't want to get within OPSEC, but yes, I don't doubt that they have them helping out. I don't doubt that Hamas and Hezbollah have individuals in our country that are primed and ready to go. We've had a gentleman's agreement, the U.S. government, with Hezbollah for years. Whether you agree with it or not, we have. And they don't F with us, we don't F with them. And real quick on the tunnels and Hezbollah and Hamas, several years ago, you might remember this too, a substation in Southern California was hit with like 3 or 4 rounds. The press ran with the story there was some drunken yahoo because it fit their agenda. But realistically, we knew in the intelligence and whatnot that that was somebody that knew what they were doing and put those rounds at certain specific, very key things in that substation. And it dropped power for most of Southern California, including us, for a couple days or a day. We believe that was a warning shot by one of those groups against the U.S. government for some reason. So yes, there's no doubt that the cartels and Hamas and Hezbollah and others are hand in hand doing things together. And yes, Hamas knows how to build tunnels. And there's no doubt that they're doing that. But tunnels, understand, tunnels are mostly for, not people, for narcotics. When they think the tunnel's been burned, that we know about it, then they'll put people through because if they get caught, the penalties are so much less for smuggling people. And people say, oh, build a fence, I'll build tunnels. Tunnels are not as easy as you think. That's why they're reaching out to people like Hamas to build tunnels. So understand this. Carl used the word invasion before. I don't usually use that term, but understand this. There are groups around the world, socialist, Marxist, countries, and others that do not want the United States to be the number one country. They don't want us to be a first world power. They would love to see us fall. And that's encompassed on the local and state and federal. We have a Chinese intelligence operative working for the governor of New York. Understand this is a real threat to our country. It is an existential threat. And you need to elect people at all levels, dog catcher on up, to help combat that. If you want your nation to stay safe, you want your community to stay safe, you want to be safe in your person, your kids. But that's a great question. Yes, Hamas and Hezbollah are in Mexico, and we know they work with the cartels.
All right, I want to let you all know at the end of today, probably by 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, this entire town hall video will be posted on my social media platforms. And so if you have friends that weren't able to make it, to say, look, I can give you the short version, but we'll just watch it. It's a real quick presentation. And let also people know that next Sunday at 1 o'clock in Escondido, we're doing the North County Border Security Town Hall. And so if they missed today, they can always come next week up to Escondido for that event. I want you to leave here not afraid. No. I want you to leave here motivated by the dangers that we just walked through. I want you to feel motivated to make change happen in this election, the next 52 days, to reach out using the voter guide, to volunteer, to contribute, to be truth bombs in your neighborhood against the dark money of the Sacramento swamp. We need you more than ever to fight because our state depends upon it, and yes, our country depends upon it. Thank you so much, and God bless.